Hey, what is up, everybody? So we got episode 1 of the podcast here today. In this podcast, going to be talking pretty much only NFL. And today we had a lot of fun topics to talk about. I plan to continue this podcast. The reason I started some podcasts in the past touching on the NFL. And if you guys follow my Packers channel, which is basically my main channel, I've posted 2,000 videos over there in the past 4 to 5 years. And I would start an NFL podcast before, and then it would be too much for me to keep up with. And I really want to have an NFL podcast. It does take, you got to prepare a lot and spend time doing that. And with my other Packers stuff, trying to keep up with all that every single day, I wasn't able to keep up with it. But my plan is to try to keep up with it. We'll see how it goes, sort of adapt as it goes by. And I'm going to get this onto the Spotify, Apple, all that kind of stuff soon. And so stay tuned for that. So here we are. Let's start off with the 49ers versus Jets coming up on Monday night. Outside of the Packers-Eagles game, because I am a Packers fan, of course that's the game I'm most excited about, I would probably say this is the game where I am the most intrigued about outside of the Packers game. The biggest reason being Aaron Rodgers. I think everyone is wondering how he's going to look in his first season here with the Jets. And one of my big questions is, has he lost a step? Because he hasn't really played football in basically 2 years, missed all of last season outside of those 4 snaps, which we already talked about. Just a sad start to the year last year. He's 40 years old, and he's coming off an Achilles injury. There are a lot of reasons, I think, to be a little bit hesitant to say that it's going to be the same Aaron Rodgers that we have seen in years past. I'm hopeful because I think that best case scenario for pretty much most NFL fans is Aaron Rodgers playing at an Aaron Rodgers level and getting to see him in the playoffs. And even though he's not in Green Bay, I would like to see him win a Super Bowl. Of course, if the Packers are there, I'm not rooting against the Packers, no doubt about that. But if the Packers don't make it to Super Bowl, I'm going to be cheering for Aaron Rodgers because I want to see him win his second Super Bowl. I think that during his time in Green Bay, if he would have had better defenses overall, I really do think he would have won 2-3 Super Bowls. Because there are so many games where it was the defense that really held the Packers back. Aaron Rodgers, his offenses have scored more points per average than Tom Brady in the playoffs. And so I think one of the biggest things holding him back was those defenses over the years. And that's the really cool thing about going to New York is that they have one of the better defenses in the NFL. And that was the one thing, the reason the Jets made the move for Aaron Rodgers is they consistently completely missed on quarterback. And if we look at the Jets quarterback's passer rating, the last 6 seasons, 3 of the years are Sam Darnold, 3 of the years are mainly Zach Wilson. But we have 77.6, 84.3, 72.7, 69.7, 72.8, 77.2. So one average-ish year at 84.3. Outside of that, quarterback ratings in the 70s and the 60s, that's some real bad quarterback play. And I don't think passer rating is the ultimate stat. I think that with different stats, it's important to look at different ones to gauge how quarterbacks play. But I think it's a pretty reliable stat in lots of instances. And if we look at Aaron Rodgers, in his final season in Green Bay in 2022, which was one of the worst years of his career, he still had a 91.1 passer rating. That's with a fractured thumb. Dealt with that lots of the season. And so if Rodgers were to have another down year for Aaron Rodgers, for Aaron Rodgers type seasons, type play, it would be much better than the Jets have had in the past 6 years. And so it's not like Aaron Rodgers needs to be MVP caliber Aaron Rodgers to take this Jets team over the top to make them win a Super Bowl. If he's just even if he's in the 10 to 15 range among quarterbacks, this is a very competitive Jets team because of how good their defense is, the 12th best scoring defense last year. And last year, the Jets only scored 15.8 points per game, which was 29th in the NFL. It was just a pain. It was really painful to try to watch the Jets move the ball. Nothing worked. Nothing worked whatsoever, and hopefully Aaron Rodgers can do that so that Jets games can actually be watchable, and you don't want to turn the channel immediately when the offense steps on the field. And they still went 7-10 last season. So I do think the Jets will make the playoffs, and I do think Aaron Rodgers will have a good year, but there are questions there. And so the matchup coming up on Monday night, against the 49ers. I mean, it's a tough defense to have to start off with, coming off of 2 years not playing. This is one of the best defenses in the entire league. They do have one of their weak spots, I would say, is their rush defense, where last year they were 26 in defensive rush EPA last season. And so that is very good news for Breece Hall, who has been, going to the top of most fantasy drafts, maybe behind Christian McCaffrey. I think that he's really, really going to have a massive breakout season this year. And I think that the Jets are going to want to feed him early and often against this 49ers defense. And when you face the 49ers, so often they get off to huge, massive leads and then are able to really dictate things and make offenses one-dimensional where they have to pass the ball. And considering the rush defense is one of their weaker spots, you want to be able to rely on the run throughout the game to sort of take advantage of that weakness. And so when you look at the rest of this Jets defense, they were 6th in EPA per pass allowed, so a very, very good secondary. They did lose Arik Armstead on the defensive line, and the Jets made a ton of moves on the offensive line to try to protect Aaron Rodgers. I think that was a very necessary move. They signed Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, drafted Olu Fashanu. But there are some worries when it comes to the health of these guys. Tyron Smith played in the past 4 seasons. Played in 2 games, 11 games, 4 games, and 13 games, and he's 33 years old, as is Morgan Moses. And so hopefully they stay healthy. If they do stay healthy, I think this is a very, very good Jets offensive line. And moving to the other side of the ball, the 49ers offensive line, outside of Trent Williams, isn't that good. I think they're okay, but you look at last year, their pressure percentage allowed, they were 17th in the NFL last season. So not great. The thing is, if you try to bring the blitz against this offense, against Brock Purdy, it's typically a very, very poor idea. You look at the numbers. Brock Purdy versus the blitz last year, 134.6 passer rating to a only 103 passer rating when not blitzed. And Kyle Shanahan, he's so good at skimming up plays and getting the ball out quickly to their plethora of weapons. Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. Now Brandon Ayuk is back, and those contract issues, contract disputes now seem to be a thing of the past. Ayuk was doing his best to get the money he thought he deserved, which I believe he ended up getting. And so this has been one of the best offenses in the NFL for a good while now, and Brock Purdy does a very, very good job of, being that game manager, not necessarily in a bad way. He manages the game well, which is, I think, a good aspect of a quarterback. You would hope that any quarterback can manage the game as well as Brock Purdy can manage the game. But he operates in Kyle Shanahan's scheme so well. And so they are facing a very, very good Jets defense. And so it's going to be a tough test, I think, for the Niners to consistently move the ball. It's going to be a tough test for the Jets to consistently move the ball because these are 2 of the better defenses in the NFL. And so when it comes to giving my final prediction here, because we don't exactly know how this Jets offense is going to look, because we haven't really seen Aaron Rodgers here in more than 4 snaps, just because of that uncertainty there, the fact that he is older, the fact that he is coming off an injury, I think it could take a little bit of time for this Jets offense to get clicking as they sort of work out some of the issues or knock off some of the rust in the offense in the first month of the season. I think that, what we see week 1 from Aaron Rodgers and this Jets offense could be night and day from what we see, week even 2, but like week 2, 3, 4, 5, as they sort of figure out how they really operate the best. And this is a very, very good 49ers defense. So I just don't think the Jets are going to be able to overpower the Niners in this one. And so I think it's going to be a 23-17 game. The 49ers win this one 23, Jets 17. I will be rooting for the Jets because I am a Aaron Rodgers fan. I will always be an Aaron Rodgers fan. He's probably my favorite NFL player all time. With him being on the Packers, and it was sad seeing him leave. Obviously, we seem to have struck gold with Jordan Love, and hopefully that continues for the rest of the season. So I'm going to be rooting for the Jets on Monday night. We'll see what happens. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, LukeBeller3, if you want to see my thoughts during the games, if you follow that. So that's the first thing I wanted to touch on. Now I want to share with you a very, very short clip from First Take the other day. And, I don't watch First Take every day, but sometimes I see clips and I want to react to them, give my thoughts on it. So the title of this is Shannon Sharpe believes Jordan Love is more likely to win MVP than Jalen Hurts. He reminds you of a lot of Aaron Rodgers. Let me play this on my phone, pull it up here, and here it is from yesterday.
Who's more likely to win MVP? Is it Love or is it Hurts?
I'm going to say Jordan Love. In his first full year of starting, 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, over 4,100 yards. He's the real deal. And if you watch him and you watch some of his mannerisms and the way he can throw the football from the pocket, the way he can throw the football on the move, the way he can change arm slots, he reminds you a lot of Aaron Rodgers. I'm not going to say he's going to be as great as Aaron Rodgers was or is with the 4 MVPs or Super Bowl MVP, but you watch his mannerisms, and he learned a lot of what he's able to do from sitting behind Aaron Rodgers and studying him. And if you look at him, he's polished. He's as good as he's better than I thought he would be, because I don't think anybody thought he was going to be this good out of the gate. Yeah, sitting behind someone, and we saw him in Kansas City that year that Aaron Rodgers had COVID, and we were like, well, damn, Green Bay, y'all might have made a mistake with this one. But lo and behold, did they ever hit it out the park with this? So I'm gonna go. Jalen Hurts is going to have to prove. Last year, he had a down year. He's got to prove that the year before that he almost won the MVP was not an anomaly. That this past season was an anomaly. And that's more of the norm. That's more of the trend. He's got to get that taste out of his mouth. And so right now, I'm going to go with Jordan Love.
All right, so that question there is basically, who do you see more as the MVP, Jalen Hurts or Jordan Love? And of course, the Packers play the Eagles in a few days on Friday night. If you're watching this after that, then you know the result there. But when it comes to this discussion, I mean, you got Jalen Hurts, who has 4 years basically playing in the NFL. His first year didn't start every game, of course, but last year was a down year for Jalen Hurts. You look at his passing statistics: 23 touchdowns to 15 interceptions and 89.1 passer rating. The year before, when it was his best year of his career so far, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, a 101.5 passer rating. So there's no doubt that last season, Jordan Love was the better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, a 96.1 passer rating. In my mind, I don't think there's a massive gap between Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love. I would say they're in the upper echelon of quarterbacks, and I know recently there's a lot of talk about how many top tier quarterbacks are there in the NFL, and I mean it really comes down to how many people you put in a tier or little things like that. Because I mean, some people say upper echelon, is that 10 quarterbacks, is that 3, is it 2? Who really knows there? But I think they're in a similar area. I still do think Jordan Love is a better quarterback. I think he's a better passer than Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts does do a lot of things that Jordan Love doesn't do on the ground, because Jordan Love doesn't run the ball much at all. He if he needs to, he will break out of the pocket and pick up a first down. But during Jalen Hurts' time in Philadelphia, it's been much more of a run-focused offense than I would say it has been in Green Bay overall. You just look at the passing yards. Jordan Love already threw for 300 more than Jalen Hurts has thrown in a season with 4,159 yards. And so I think they're definitely different style quarterbacks. If you look just at solely being a pure passer, I would say that Jordan Love is the better passer. And one area specifically, which really showed up last year, was when teams blitzed Jalen Hurts. He was much worse. He had a 75.3 passer rating when blitzed last season. When he wasn't blitzed, he had I think it was about a 95-ish passer rating. So it basically dropped around 20 points when he was blitzed last season. The year before, though, it was a little bit of a different story. He had a 75.3 passer rating when blitzed in 2023, but a 93.1 passer rating when blitzed in 2022. You also look at 2023, 30th in EPA per play when facing zero blitz. So when defenses, brought that zero blitz, Jalen Hurts did not really have any answers for that, and I think there can be a debate. Was it because of the poor offensive plays that were called and all that kind of stuff, because I do think that, losing Shane Steichen with him going to Indianapolis, I think that definitely impacted what the Eagles did in 2023 and why now they decided to bring in new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, who I do think is going to get this Eagles offense back to how they looked a little bit more in 2022, just a lot more high-powered. You look at Kellen Moore in Dallas, specifically with all the talent there, top-tier quarterback, except in the playoffs. They were just a really, really good team, and I think that the Eagles will bounce back from last year. I don't see them being playing like they did last year to end it off, going, 1-6 down the stretch. I don't see that really happening this year. I think they'll be better overall. But it's not like the Eagles offense wasn't good last year. I still think they were the 7th best scoring offense in the entire NFL. But lots of times in second halves, things just went south. And so if I had to say who's more likely to win MVP, I would say Jordan Love. I think he's a more special passer, but I don't think Jalen Hurts is that far behind Jordan Love. And, maybe I'm a bias. I'm a Packers fan. And Jordan Love does only have one season, but I think he's a special quarterback. And I think that after this next season, it's going to be more solidified in the minds of most people that Jordan Love is the guy that he looked like last year down the stretch. And that is my hope. And if that doesn't happen, that'll definitely make me sad. But it's a possibility. You can never rule out anything in the NFL. And so I'm not going to say, well, there's no chance. I guess technically anything could happen in the NFL. I just think there's a very small chance of Jordan Love just completely losing it. I think he's going to get better this next season with his talent here. And the more time that you spend with receivers and things like that, the better you're going to get overall. So that's my thoughts there. Now I want to move on to the Lions versus Rams game. So the rematch of the wild card round where the Lions beat the Rams 24-23. Their first playoff win in over 30-plus years. And it's pretty interesting that, since the trade happened a few years back with Matthew Stafford going to the Rams and Jared Goff going to the Lions, it really seems like it worked out really well for both guys overall. And I don't think that's always the case in these trades where, big name players are moved. And there aren't a lot of trades where, two guys at the same position are traded. Sure, it happens, but not very often. And I think Matthew Stafford clearly coming to the Rams and winning a Super Bowl, I think he would say that he was happy the trade went down. Jared Goff going to Detroit and really, I would say, turning things around and playing the best he's ever played in the NFL. I would say both are somewhat satisfied with the result of the trade. And now moving into Sunday night's game, I found this interesting tweet with some stats here on Twitter at rclemente2121. It says here, it shows the records for Stafford on Sunday night and Jared Goff on Sunday night. Stafford with the Rams, 1-2 on Sunday night with the Rams, 1-6 with the Lions, 2-8 in his career. Jared Goff, 2-0 with the Lions, 4-3 with the Rams, 6-3 in his career. So it looks like Stafford has been pretty bad on Sunday nights for whatever reason that is. Not going to say it's going to carry over, but an interesting stat to bring up first. And if we look back to that wild card game, Matthew Stafford picked apart the Lions secondary. He threw for 367 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a 120.9 passer rating. And you would say, looking at those stats, how did the Rams not pull off the victory with Stafford absolutely dealing in that game? The big difference maker in that game was the Rams went 0-3 in the red zone. So if they would have converted one of those for a touchdown, that swings the game there. They were better on offense than the Lions in that game, averaged 7.7 yards per play to Lions 6.1 yards per play. So it really was their lack of efficiency, their inability to score when they were in the red zone, and we'll see if that will change come Sunday night. And I think all in all, the Rams started last year, I would say more of a sleeper team, not really talked about too much. After their Super Bowl year, they sort of took a dip down, declined a little bit. But they were the 8th best scoring offense in the NFL last season. And I found an interesting stat, very interesting, from NFL Pro. And it says here, the Rams gained 6.8 yards per play with Stafford, Williams, Kupp and Nakua on the field last season, that's Kyren Williams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nakua, which would have led the NFL. Because of multiple injuries, this group played only 387 plays together last season. So if all those guys can stay healthy, this is one of the best offenses in the NFL. It already was last year, and if they're all healthy and can play in the same way they did last year, this could be a top 5 scoring offense in the NFL. And considering that's, the Lions defense has been their weakness the past couple of years, because their offense hasn't one of the best the past 2 years. The Lions offense has been the 5th best scoring offense in the entire NFL. The Lions defense has not been as good. They've been 23rd in scoring defense last season, 2nd best run defense, 4th worst pass defense. They were 28th in EPA per drop back allowed. And so their biggest weakness last year was their secondary, and that showed up in that game. And luckily for them, they played good red zone defense. If they didn't do that, they probably wouldn't have won that wild card game, wouldn't have gotten all the way to the NFC Championship. But this offseason, the Lions did make a lot of changes to try to bolster their secondary. Trading for Bucs cornerback Carlton Davis, they signed cornerback Amik Robertson, who is expected to start in the slot. They also drafted first-rounder Terrion Arnold and second-round pick Ennis Rakestraw. So they really bolstered that unit where they knew, we're terrible here. We need to make some changes to really take this team to the next level. Because I think if you can improve that area of the team and make them even middle of the road, this is, a very, very dangerous team. They already are, just because of how good this offense is. And they also signed DJ Reader from the Bengals, who's a massive addition there on the defensive line. And so when you look at the Rams right now, they have a ton of weapons. Puka, Cooper Kupp, Kyren Williams. Their skill positions, they're completely locked and loaded, ready to go. Their offensive line right now is a little concerning with Jackson recently suspended for 2 games, their left tackle, and now Noteboom is going to have to start at left tackle. It's a little concerning there. Last year, the Rams overall were 10th best offensive line in pressure rate, but I think there are some weak links here coming into this game. And considering the Lions had the number 3 pressure rate last season, I think that the Rams are going to play really well, but I think the Lions could get some pressure on Stafford and cause some problems there. Now, the real question for this game is, can this Rams defense keep this explosive Lions offense in check? Because we know the Rams can put up points. They have a very, very good offense, but can they put up enough to, basically outduel this Lions offense that has consistently been one of the best in the entire NFL? And if we look at the Rams defense, they of course lose Aaron Donald, which I think is the biggest loss pretty much any defense could have, just because of how dominant he's been for his entire career. And even with Aaron Donald last year, they were the 19th ranked scoring defense in the NFL, had the 16th best pressure rate last season in the NFL. So they lose Aaron Donald. They did bring in some other pieces. Safety Cameron Curl, he's an okay safety, ranked 50th out of 95 per PFF last year per their grade. They did use a lot of draft capital on the defensive line, drafting first-rounder defensive end Jared Verse and second-rounder defensive tackle Braden Fisk. So they do have some nice young talent there, but who knows how long it'll take until they're ready to go and in top-tier form. And so they also added 2 new corners in Tre'Davious White and Darius Williams. So there's a lot of new pieces here on this defense, and how long is it going to take for them to gel and get used to each other and play at a top-tier level? I don't think this is a top-tier defense. I think they're going to be middle of the road to a bottom 10 defense in the NFL. And just because of how much firepower Detroit has, I just don't think the Rams are going to be able to keep up with it. And I think that the Lions are going to outscore the Rams in this game. So my score prediction for this game is going to be Lions 30, Rams 24. I think that Stafford will keep it close in this one, but I think the Lions offense is too good to lose this game. So now I want to touch on Caleb Williams and his rookie debut coming up on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans. Of course, there's been so much Caleb Williams talk with him being the number 1 pick in this past draft. And I think that there's a lot of reasons for Bears fans to be excited because he is a very exciting player to watch. There's no doubt. He's a ton of talent. And coming into this week 1 game, they're facing off against a Titans team that I think isn't the best on defense. Last year, they were the 16th ranked scoring defense. Their secondary was middle of the road. PFF has them as the 16th best secondary going into this year. Traded for L'Jarius Sneed, added Chidobe Awuzie, but I would say they're pretty weak at safety. Quandre Diggs last year, 87th grade out of 95 safeties per PFF. Amani Hooker, 65 grade. And so I think there are a lot of weak links in this Titans secondary that Caleb Williams and the Bears weapons are going to be able to take advantage of. And when we look at the Titans pass rush, they don't have that much talent, top-tier talent, I would say, outside of Justin Simmons. They brought in Sebastian Joseph Day and drafted rookie Tavondre Sweat. And if we look overall, last year they were 19th in pressure rate last season. And so I think if you're Caleb Williams, this is a pretty solid matchup for your first start in the NFL against a middle-tier to lower-tier Titans secondary, Titans defense. And I think we all know, no matter what happens come Sunday, if Caleb Williams has an insane game, if he has a terrible game, the reaction is going to be, oh no, Caleb Williams, he's done for. He threw 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, or the opposite. He has an insane day and people are, calling him the next Mahomes. He may look like it at times, but I think that on either extreme, it's going to be too early to judge his entire season off of one NFL game. And I was curious, and so I went and looked up a ton of rookie quarterbacks or quarterbacks in their first start in the NFL to see how often guys have really, really good performances. So I just want to read a few of these here. CJ Stroud, his first start last year, 20-44, 242 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a 78 passer rating. His season-long passer rating was 100.8, and so he started off, didn't even throw a touchdown. Pretty average day for CJ Stroud. Offense only scored 9 points, so not a great day. Not terrible, but not great. Bryce Young, that was another story. 20 of 38, 146 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 48.8 passer rating. Not good, but that was way worse than his overall season, where he finished with a 73.7 passer rating. Now to some older quarterbacks, a little bit older. We have Lamar Jackson. Back in November of 2018, he had to start because of a Joe Flacco injury, and apparently he had been dealing with a stomachache and insomnia, so that's not really how you want to go into your first start in the NFL. But he goes 13 of 19, 150 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, a 70.1 passer rating. So another not great passing day. He did, however, run for 119 yards on 26 carries. So I think that probably made up for a somewhat down day passing the ball. But so far, CJ Stroud, no touchdowns. Bryce Young, no touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, no touchdowns. Now to Mahomes. His first start. 22 of 35, 284 yards, 0 touchdowns. Once again, 1 interception, a 76.4 passer rating. He did, however, drive them down the field for a game-winning field goal. But overall, that wasn't a great day by Patrick Mahomes. And so far, in those 4 players, none of them threw a touchdown in their opener. So you're starting to see a theme here. He had a 76.4 passer rating. Now, Joe Burrow, did he throw a touchdown pass in his debut? 23 of 36, 193 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, a 66.1 passer rating. So if you would have just asked me, out of Joe Burrow, Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, how many touchdowns did they throw, combined in their starting debut, I would have said 3. I mean, those 3 guys, I don't know, 4. It's like 0. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? So it's not a shock that, players in their first ever NFL game against NFL quality talent don't have the best days. Then I have a few more, and then we'll see how this relates to Caleb Williams. Josh Allen, 18 of 33, 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a 63.3 passer rating. So Josh Allen breaks the streak there. He actually threw a touchdown pass, but still not a great day. Justin Herbert, 22 of 33, 311 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a 94.4 passer rating. So he probably had the best day out of all these guys, throwing for 300-plus yards. They lose in overtime. So he's sort of an outlier out of these players. And then the final one, Dak Prescott, 24 of 45, 227 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a 69.4 passer rating. So the point I'm trying to make is that if Caleb Williams has a down day in his first game of his entire career, I don't think it's that big of a deal. So many of these quarterbacks who have gone on to become the best quarterbacks and, the best overall in Mahomes didn't really have good starts to start their entire season. And I think you look at many week ones, it's like the overreactions reach crazy levels just because we've been sitting around all off season making our predictions, trying to figure out, who we think is going to win, who's going to go to a Super Bowl, how good is this team, how good is this team. And the first real, live football we get, it's like we want to take that and make strong conclusions about everything. And I think there are probably some things that you can go, okay, that, this team looks really good, they look pretty solid, things like that. But specifically for young quarterbacks, I just think that patience is really important with any quarterback. And you look at Jordan Love last year, of course he wasn't a rookie, but it was his first year starting. Tons of people wrote him off when the Packers were in a losing streak and he wasn't playing well. And then he turns it around and finishes as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and gets a $55 million per year contract, which matched Joe Burrow. So I think that Caleb Williams, honestly, when you look at all those guys that I read off and the defense that he's facing, I feel like Caleb Williams could have a good day. I really do. I would be shocked if he didn't throw a touchdown pass. But I would have thought that Mahomes and Burrow and Jackson probably would have at least thrown one. They didn't. But I think all in all, Caleb Williams is a very talented player. They have an insane group around him of pass-catching talent. He's probably in one of the better positions when it comes to young rookie quarterbacks in the NFL when they enter the league. And so I do think the expectations are certainly high, but I still think we should give him time no matter what happens come Sunday. But I think he's going to have a good game. And if I had to guess a stat line, I'm going to say 230 yards, 1 passing touchdown, and 1 interception. That's my prediction here for Caleb Williams versus the Titans. So now I want to talk about Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. Right now, the trade for Deshaun is not looking good. He has not really lived up to the amount of money and the trade capital that the Browns gave over for Deshaun Watson. And there's no doubt that how far the Browns go ultimately when it comes to the playoffs, it's going to come down to how good Deshaun Watson is. Because there's no question that the Cleveland Browns have one of the best defenses in the entire NFL, and they will once again. They did last year as well. They were the best defense in EPA per play allowed, and they were the 13th best scoring defense in the entire NFL, number 1 in yards allowed. They also had the second highest pressure rate in the league last season behind Dallas. And so just because of that and how good that defensive line was, that's what carried them last year, and it's why they went 11-6. Even though their quarterback situation was absolutely abysmal. Joe Flacco starts 5 games. Deshaun Watson starts 6 games. Dorian Thompson-Robinson starts 3 games. PJ Walker starts 2 games. Jeff Driscoll starts 1 game. It's like, how in the world do you expect a team to be competitive when you're, switching off quarterbacks nearly every few weeks? And now going into this next season, the question once again becomes, can Deshaun Watson get back to how he looked in Houston? Because that's why the Browns decided to trade for him. It's why they gave everything they did to bring Deshaun Watson in. And when we look at Deshaun Watson and sort of how he performed last season, it really wasn't great. And if you look at his 12 total games since he came to Cleveland, over that entire stretch, he has the 6th lowest QBR in the NFL. And another interesting stat from Warren Sharp, on plays when he was not under pressure, Watson generated -1 EPA or worse 12.6% of the time last season, ranked 38th out of 45 quarterbacks. So if Watson continues to play like he did last season, the Browns aren't going to, make a Super Bowl push. If he can get back to how he played in his time in Houston, then this very well can be a Super Bowl caliber team just because of already how good this defense is. And if Watson can reach that level, then the sky's the limit for this team. But that's really the big question, which there's still some uncertainty there, and we'll have to see if he can stay healthy, what he can do consistently. And one interesting thing that I saw in the past week. You may have seen it already. So the Browns decided to restructure Deshaun Watson's deal to lessen his cap hit for this season, which makes it a 27.92 cap hit, which isn't bad. But what is bad is what happens to the future years of his contract. In 2025, his cap hit is going to be $72.93 million. Absurd. In 2026, $72.935 million. And you say, okay, well, what if the Browns after this season see Deshaun Watson play and they say, okay, we made a mistake. He's not really the guy. He sort of stinks now. Let's cut him and just sort of save our money. The reality, there would be no save money. It would ruin the Browns if they decide to cut Deshaun Watson. He will have this number is insane. Like I've never seen a number like this when it comes to dead cap. If they cut him after this year, he will have a $172 million dead cap hit. $172 million. That is, that's like impossible to build a team if you have a $172 million cap hit for your quarterback who wouldn't even be on your roster. That is insane. And then, okay, well, maybe after 2025, maybe it gets a little better. Not really. It does get a little better, but still pretty bad. If they release him after that year, after 2025, it'll be a $99.8 million dead cap hit. So either way, the Browns push money into future years. It helps their current situation cap-wise. And I think they have like 50 or 60 million, something like that, dollars in cap space right now. But if Deshaun Watson does not play well, they're sort of stuck with him. And I think that their decision to do this shows just how all in they are with him, really banking on him, getting back to how he played during his time in Houston. But if he doesn't play well, I don't know what the Browns will do. Because you probably just have to stick it out with him, because I do not see how you could hold a $172 million dead cap hit. There's no way. I know there's ways to, I think if you do it after, maybe it's after June 1st, you can split it up into 2 years, and maybe that makes it a little bit more reasonable. But I think they're banking on him getting better, and then you can probably restructure his deal or give him an extension and push that money ahead to future years. And so the Browns are really in a tough spot right now if Deshaun Watson does not work out. I think if he doesn't work out, then this team is sort of in a really bad spot for years to come just because of how much money they paid him and their decision to push the money out more and more. I think if I were them, I probably just would have not restructured his deal. But it seems that they want to have some flexibility if they want to potentially, trade for players during the season. Because there's no doubt, outside of quarterback, depending on how he plays, they have an insanely good offensive line, insanely good front seven, insanely good secondary, solid weapons, solid running back, especially once Nick Chubb comes back. So this is going to be an interesting one to watch to see sort of what happens here with Watson, because if it doesn't go well, the Browns are going to be in a very, very tough spot. But that's pretty much all I have today for this podcast. If you guys enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe, drop a like, turn on the notifications so you don't miss any more. I'll probably come out with one in the next week after all the games take place, and we'll sort of see what happens there. But you can also follow me on Twitter, LukeBeller3, and let me know your thoughts about the podcast today in the comment section down below. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.